Hi friends, welcome back to Feed the Sheep podcast. I'm your host, Kelsey Keeling with Balanced Ruminant Grazers. I'm a wife to my soulmate Ryan, mother of 4, daughter of Christ, who is always working to be a Proverbs 31 woman. Join me as I share my passion for hair sheep by taking you along as we work to create a balanced sheep flock of Australian whites in South Central Kansas. I hope these episodes and conversations not only educate you, but inspire you to add our sheep to your farm someday. Now let's get to talking sheep. Hi sheep friends, welcome back to another episode. This is episode number 9. We are still outside enjoying the nice weather. My daughter's here with me if you are just hopping in. So she might be chatty in the background, but that's okay. Yes, and Bubba is at school. We're going to go get him in a second. Okay. Yeah, sit down in your seat. Okay. So, the scripture of this episode is from Romans. I am just going through. I didn't organize these scriptures very well. I just was like, we'll go through and find some that I have highlighted, and they're all really good. So this one is Romans, chapter 8, verse 25, and it says, "But if we hope for what we do not see, we wait for it with patience." So that applies to you in your life. I feel you. Definitely why I had that highlighted. I need more patience for sure. Anyways, so today's episode we are going to be talking about hot wire versus netting, and I really want to make sure if you guys haven't heard me talk about this yet. These first 100 episodes I'm just going to have myself. But I really want to eventually have people on to talk more about how their operation works and how why they do what they do. You know, just I feel like it's such a good thing to always be a lifelong learner, and that's what this podcast is for me. Essentially, it's an excuse, hopefully, for me in the future to just talk to people and be like, "Hey, do you want to come on my podcast?" Because I would love to just chat with you and chat sheep. And so that's eventually the goal. But I know that there's a couple people that use netting exclusively, and I just don't know how they do it, I guess, is what it's a lot. And so I want to have them on and talk more about why they do what they do, why they have netting versus trying to go to electric, polywire or whatever. But yeah, we'll eventually have somebody on at the beginning or starting in 2024 to talk about that. But for, I guess, our perspective of netting versus poly braid or, electric wire, why we chose what we chose, there's just a couple different things that you need to think about or to consider. And one of them is definitely cost. Your hot wire is going to be a lot cheaper to set up, depending on where you're setting it up. I guess if you do like a 5-strand perimeter fence, that's going to add up. I wish I had my numbers in front of me. I know Ryan and we have built a couple lots on the farm and tried to figure out what was going to be the best option for us with like woven wire versus purchasing netting or doing hot wire. And it always came back to just doing hot wire. One of our lots, I'll leave a video to it in the description box or in the show notes. But over the winter, we have decided to put our sheep on a lot, or at least we did that this last year with the drought. And we had a bunch of extra barbed wire laying around. So we did 5-strand barbed wire and then lined it with 2-strand electric. And that worked really well for us to keep them on that lot and know that they weren't going to get out. We had one get out, but she was kind of a stinker, and so she ended up going to the butcher because that's how ruthless we are sometimes. I was not about to have her train everybody. She actually did train like 2 or 3 more sheep, and I was like, nope, we're done with this. You're going in a pen, and I do not care. I think she went in the ram pen with the ram, and anyways, that was eventually handled. But hot wire versus netting, you know, you're going to have to consider your perimeter fence, what that situation looks like. But for us, we already have hot wire around the farm because of the cattle. And so that looks like us just adding more wiring to it, which I showed you guys in the last video how Ryan was doing that. So if you didn't watch that episode, go back, check it out on YouTube. I'll leave it in the show notes, episode 8. But so it's not that hard to just add a couple more wires. And then once that is set up, it's set up. First, if you get netting, then you're always breaking down the netting, always moving the netting. And I'm sure we have chicken netting that we haven't taken care of, I will say that. So it's gotten really we don't have the original posts. It's very slacky. It broke in a couple areas. So whenever we move that, though, it's always like a pain, and it just irks me. And I've talked to people that do sheep netting, and they're like, no, you just take care of it, and you learn your process of how you do it, and it's not that big of a deal. And I'm like, okay, I could totally see that, but I just don't know if I want to give it a chance or rely on it fully. There are different situations that we've talked about, possibly having netting. We have some ditches that are closer to the highway by our house. Not that the sheep could get to the highway, but just it would be a lot easier to have netting down there if we just wanted to strip graze them just small bits. Feel more protected would be nice to have the netting for. What was another situation? Oh, just like if there was quality forage that we were moving them to, having that fence that they are going to be moved on, that the next paddock that they were going to be moved on to, having that fence be netting, that would be really nice, because then they would be super discouraged to jump over it or through it to try to get to that forage in the next paddock. But I guess for us, the biggest reason that we haven't dove into getting netting, like I said, we already have set up for cattle. It's easier for us to just add a couple wires, but also the investment. We're just starting out, and so making that big initial investment in netting isn't something that we can do easily right now. Our area that we are trying to cover is very large, and so I can't remember how many feet we have. Right now we're going to be grazing our sheep the rest of the summer on 240 acres, and we have that divided up into 4 sections running north and south. And so I can't remember how long that is, each section is, but it would be a lot of netting to go from east to west. And then you're going to be doing that, your back fence, your front fence, and then when you're ready to move them to the next fence or the next paddock, you'd have, I don't know what it would be, however many nets you would have. It doesn't make sense. So right now we are doing that same structure of running them north, but I have 3 strands of poly wire on the north side towards their new paddock, and then I think only 2 on the back side, because we're grazing it pretty hard, and there's no regrowth right now, so they don't really have a reason to go back. But I hope that kind of overview explains it. Hot wire versus netting, and why we are choosing to do what we're doing. If you guys have any more questions about it, please see the description box or the show notes, and I have a little thing that you guys can leave me a voicemail that I get emailed to me, and you guys can just ask a question, or if you have a question that you feel like could be turned into an episode, I'd love to hear it, and we will try our best to get to that. We have 100 episodes to fill on all these new things for beginning sheep farmers, and there is no silly question at all. We all need to learn together, and I don't think of all the questions that I should for you guys, like questions that you guys would have. So if you have a question, just shoot me a voicemail and I'd love to answer it. Okay, we will end this episode here. We'll see you guys in episode 10. Thank you again for being here, and we'll see you guys later. Okay, bye guys.